To secure a win in Street Fighter 6, you'll have to open up your opponent and land that decisive attack, which may not be as easy as it sounds, especially when you start fighting tougher opponents. But no worries, I've got you. Here are 5 simple and effective ways to level up your offense in Street Fighter 6. And the best part of it all is that you can start applying these tips to your next game with very little to no training required. First up, we gotta talk about a major tool that we'll be seeing a lot of from now till the end of Street Fighter 6's lifecycle, and that is the drive rush. This mechanic is tied to the drive gauge and allows you to cancel certain normal moves or drive parry into a green paint splattered dash, allowing the user to cover great distances. But that's not all. The dash has a special property that enhances the next normal move you throw out, giving it more hit stun and block stun. Essentially, if you hit the opponent with a drive rush augmented move, you'll be able to pull off some nasty combos that would otherwise not be possible. Nice. And if your augmented attack happens to be blocked, depending on the move, you may recover a bit before your opponent, allowing you to continue your offensive pressure, or turning a move that would otherwise be punishable into something that is safe. The ability to cancel certain normal attacks into a drive rush allows you to convert a stray hit into meaningful damage at the cost of 3 drive meter. On the other hand, canceling a drive parry into a drive rush only costs 1 drive meter and is more useful in the neutral game as a way to close the gap on your opponent. It is also quite a bit more efficient to use in certain combo situations, as drive rush augmented normals have special juggle properties. This mechanic is super versatile and gets better as you become better yourself at the game. As you build confidence, game knowledge, and experience, you'll be able to get more creative with the tool, letting it truly shine. Speaking of the drive rush, another great way to level up your offense is to use the drive gauge as an indicator on when to really pile on the pressure. The drive gauge is the quintessential resource to manage in Street Fighter 6, as it gives the player many offensive and defensive tools. With low drive meter, these tools become increasingly risky to use, as doing so may put the user in a state of burnout. While burnt out, the user is unable to use any drive techniques like drive parry or drive impact. It takes longer to recover from blocking an opponent's attack, and now you take chip damage from certain moves and you can even die from it. And most scary of all, if the user is burnt out and gets knocked into a wall by drive impact, the burnt out player will be unable to take any actions for a time, giving the attacker a free spicy combo. It's really easy to do this to the burnt out player because of the increased block stun on all moves that they block, and the burnt out player is also locked out of all of their defensive drive tools that would have been amazing to use against drive impact. This fear of being burnt out is something we're all going to be sharing, but the key takeaway of all this is that being low on drive meter or burnt out limits the amount of options the players will have when they try to defend themselves. Less options make for a more predictable play pattern, which makes mounting an offense a lot easier. And this is the key to getting better at offensive play in fighting games in general, so always keep this in mind. Outside of overspending your meter, you can damage the opponent's drive meter by landing attacks on them. Super arts seem to do a bit more damage to the drive meter than regular attacks, and certain moves in this game, like standing heavy punch, heavy kick, or standing medium kick, deals drive meter damage even when blocked by your opponent. So even if you're not doing any real damage, by using strong poke tools, you can really force the enemy into very uncomfortable situations, and if they don't fight back and continue to block, they'll get burnt out. If they do retaliate, they may end up overspending their drive meter and put themselves into burnout state anyways. By presenting this risk to the opponent, it becomes increasingly more difficult for them to make a decisive choice, as they are put in a no-win situation, which is perfect if you're the aggressor. Before we continue, if you're having a good time, hit that like button and consider subscribing for more Street Fighter 6 content. Thanks! Another way to limit an opponent's actions is to use positioning to your advantage. The ability to move backwards is a very minor but powerful tool that allows a player to move out of the opponent's effective threat range and outright avoid damage. It also allows the player to bait opponents into throwing out a long-reaching, slow recovery move by walking in and out of the desired range of said move. If you are intently looking for this, you can turn a simple act of walking back and forth into a full damage, stylish combo with a well-timed whiff punish. On the opposite hand, taking this option to walk backwards away from the opponent by pushing them into a corner not only disables a powerful offensive counter tool like a whiff punish, but also forces the opponent into taking interactions they could have otherwise avoided, like getting burnt out, blocking standing medium kicks that they now can't safely avoid. Positioning, or rather the art of being in the right place at the right time, is an underrated tool, especially for beginners. It is deceptively simple, but amazingly hard to master. But from personal experience, it is well worth the effort to learn. It's a concept that will stick with you and help you succeed through many parts of life, and even other competitive games that are not fighting games. Tip number 4, as you fight increasingly stronger opponents, you'll be spending more time hitting a blocking opponent than landing actual hits. If you over-rely on a small handful of moves to start your offense, you risk becoming predictable to your opponent, making it even harder to mount any meaningful offense. To prevent this, you must utilize different high-low mix-ups to force your opponent to block a certain way. For example, crouching medium kick for most characters, you'll have to block crouching, otherwise it will hit you. And most, if not all, characters in Street Fighter 6 have an overhead move which must be blocked standing, otherwise it will hit the opponent. By creating Facing different scenarios with these types of moves, your opponent is then forced to focus switching between standing and crouching to block. And because they have to put mental power into blocking your offense, they have less mental power to mount a meaningful counterattack, which in turn gives you more control of the match. By augmenting your character's overhead attack with a drive rush, you'll be able to turn this into significant damage that you would otherwise not be able to do. Similarly, you can also augment your low attacks like crouching medium kick or crouching light kick into a combo that does meaningful damage by augmenting the move with drive rush. By mixing in drive rush overheads and drive rush lows into your offensive pressure, you essentially turn all of your drive rush opportunities into a high-low mix-up for your opponents that they'll have to react to, which is pretty terrifying if you ask me. Okay. Just like number 2 and number 3, the last tip focuses on limiting your opponent's options. When a player is knocked down, they can choose between 2 different ways to get back up, a normal rise or press any 2 buttons to do a back rise. While there are no differences in wake up speed between the 2 options, the back rise does move you further away from your opponent, allowing you to escape certain pressure scenarios. Hitting your opponents with certain attacks like crouching heavy kick or level 3 super arts will force them into a hard knockdown state. In this state, the player is unable to use back rise at all and must normal rise. And since there's no timing difference between the normal and the back rise, being in the corner means that you'll get up at the same time no matter which option you choose, which has the same intended effect as a hard knockdown. Being forced to get up normally means that you can 100% guarantee when and where they'll be after your combo, allowing you to create certain pressure scenarios that is guaranteed to work, if you perform the setup correctly, that is. Mission failed. We'll get them next time. And you're probably going to have to account for the possibility of an invincible reversal on wake up, which depends entirely on the personality of your opponent and the current state of your match. The fighting game terminology for this sort of pressure is called okuzemi or set play. It's the offensive that you run when your opponent is knocked down. If you would like to learn how to use okuzemi to terrorize your opponents and how to survive getting knocked down yourself, check out this video on screen right now. My name is Varsona, and I'll see you in the next video.